Good morning. It's Thursday, July 17th, 2014, and this is Tech Talk Today, episode 28, and my name is Chris, and I'm joined today by an excellent team of Mumble cohorts. And guys, we're going to hey there. We're going to start with a story that has had a thread throughout the entire week of Tech Talk Today. The big axe man made his announcement today over at Microsoft. Everyone pour out a little bit. Microsoft announced 18,000 job cuts. This is on Thursday. Microsoft announced plans to cut up to 18,000 jobs this year, its deepest cuts ever, as the company looked to digest its Nokia acquisition and reposition itself for the future. The company is moving now, they say, on 13 of the 18,000 job cuts, with the vast majority of overall cuts coming in the next 6 months and implemented fully over the next 12 months. About 12,500 of the 18,000 cuts are coming from the Nokia Devices Division and Services Unit, which is roughly half of the Nokia workforce. Satya Nadella, Microsoft CEO, said in another one of his, I think he's going to become famous for the way he words things. Here's what he wrote. Here's an excerpt from the memo. I have a link to the whole memo in the show notes. He says, "The first step to building the right organization for our ambitions is to realign our workforce." He goes on to say, "It's important to note that while we'll be eliminating roles in some areas, we are adding roles in certain strategic other areas. My promise to you is that we will go through this process in the most thoughtful and transparent way possible." He says he wants to make a shift select on Nokia X, too. Yeah, you might have guessed it if you're paying close attention. Along with the job cuts, today, Microsoft announced they're canceling the Nokia X, which is the new Nokia Android-based phone. Here's how he put it.
Good riddance.
Aw. Yeah, it was always kind of an awkward duck.
It was an abomination.
So here's how he put it. He said, "In addition, we plan to shift select Nokia X products designs to become Lumia products running Windows. This builds on our success in the affordable smartphone space and aligns with our focus on Windows Universal Apps." Huge, huge. What do you guys think? Are you sad? Do you think this is a good move for Microsoft? Ick, I want to start with you since you're in our neck of the woods. We're in Microsoft's backyard. We know people that work at Microsoft. Are you sad? Do you think this is necessary? Where you stand on this?
I'm kind of mixed because on one hand, I think Nadella is doing a great job with shifting Microsoft's focus, but on the other hand, it's just like, wow, the economy in this area heavily depends on Microsoft and Boeing and Starbucks, all the big players. So there's that, but at the same time, the first thing that I thought of was I don't know, that sound effect from The Price is Right.
Oh, you mean like the old classic, like, sorry, Microsoft, but this isn't going to really work out. So you're saying what you believe is this is a full-on fail.
I think this is an admission to failure, actually.
I don't know, man.
I can't cry for them too much.
They've built this position up. They hired all of these people. They built out this incredibly dense organization that was fed by their cash cow Windows. And now they're in a position where they have to restructure in order to stay relevant. And the worst part is it is entirely possible that even after all of these cuts and after all of these memos, they still won't manage to scrape their way to relevance in certain markets.
Yeah, and the other thing is that I did read Nadella put out an email internally to the company that was actually made public as well, that it talked about how they are just not going to focus and push Windows as much anymore. They want to really do the cloud infrastructure, which makes sense because Nadella came from the cloud division of Microsoft. And it's just going to be really interesting just to kind of see what happens from here on out. In terms of Microsoft, I'm just in a wait-and-see attitude.
Yeah, I agree. Anybody else in the room have any thoughts on the Microsoft situation? It's one of those things where it's hard because you feel bad for the people, but you feel good that maybe the company is going to finally get out of their funk a little bit. And I got to say, the stock market is responding really well. Really, really well. Microsoft's actually on a decade high right now. Their stock price is up. I have a chart in the show notes that shows you just since the rumors of the layoffs started, the stock price has shot up since then, and the chart's in the show notes if you want to check that out. Wall Street loves this. They've been loving this all week long. Wall Street wants Microsoft to cut. Remember, Microsoft's previous largest layoff was 5,800 people. This is 18,000. Now, yes, 12,000 or so are going to come from the Nokia division that they're still merging with, but that's a dramatic cut, however you look at it.
A dramatic cut, but again, it's a merger type deal where they're going to have to lay off employees
There's
because
gonna
they
be
just have
redundancies.
too much duplication now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a non-story in some way because these are employees they would have to, any company would have to lay off when they merge.
And thank goodness in a way that Microsoft isn't going to try to integrate all of them, because when they made that announcement, my thought is, whoa, Microsoft is already way, 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 way too top-heavy. So, anyways, interesting thoughts. I'd like to hear the audience's thoughts. Go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, click the contact link, and choose Tech Talk Today from the drop-down. We're going to be reading some feedback for special recordings we'll be doing on Friday for next week while I'm at OSCON. You can also go to techtalktoday.reddit.com to share your thoughts on the Microsoft situation, something we've been talking about. We saw this one coming, and now it's here, and we're just going to take a little while to process it all and see where it all goes. Something else that could be good news if you're a U.S. mobile customer, more competition in the wireless spectrum is always good, so Sprint and T-Mobile are teaming up to make a $10 billion auction for a wireless spectrum. Now, here's what's interesting about this. The FCC plans to buy back airwaves used by television broadcast in a reverse auction and then resell that airwaves to wireless carriers in what they call a forward auction. It's a complicated process, and it's the first time such an idea has ever been tried, according to the FCC. Sprint and T-Mobile are working on a plan to raise roughly $10 billion to spend in an auction of wireless airwaves. This is according to two people familiar with the matter. Love that one. If Sprint and T-Mobile jointly spend $10 billion as they currently plan, it would exceed the $9 billion outlay that AT&T has earmarked for the auction. The companies, which have also been discussing a possible merger, T-Mobile and Sprint, since last year, are planning to form a joint venture that they'll make their bid in 2015. The funds are part of a roughly $45 billion financing package being put together by SoftBank to finance Sprint's acquisition of T-Mobile. Again, according to people familiar with the matter. SoftBank acquired Sprint last year for $22 billion and has been buying and building towers like a madman ever since. T-Mobile would oversee this venture. That's according to concessions from Sprint's chairman during the merger talks. Again, people familiar with the matter say. An announcement of the merger could come this summer, too, so stay tuned for that. We might get the official Sprint and T-Mobile merger. Regardless of the merger status, they want to do this joint auction together and work together on this mobile spectrum. So they're buying from TV because we had the conversion to digital. So there's a lot of analog TV space that is waiting to be reclaimed, and I think this is some of it. And they'll repurpose this, and it's a really good frequency. They're going to repurpose this frequency for mobile and data, and that could be really good. And I love anytime T-Mobile and Sprint can team up, either through a merger or just through spectrum. I think that's a great thing for consumers. Pushes against the big dogs a little bit.
Well, it's I think it's a good thing because it's a lower frequency, therefore you don't have to use as much energy to output it, as well as the fact that you don't have to have as many towers to maintain on that lower frequency. Because if you know anything about how frequencies work, the higher the frequency, the more directional it has to be. If it's a lower frequency, it is, I wouldn't say omnidirectional, but non-directional. So it goes everywhere. And I can just see that as being a potential win for the entire cell phone industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And why not repurpose the spectrum? If the spectrum is truly just kind of sitting around right now, why are we not repurposing that? That makes sense to me. Let's use it up, right? So
right.
So hopefully they'll get some good use out of that. All right, let's do a live demo for our next story. Popey's not here, so I normally hold the Bitcoin stories for when Popey's here. But he didn't make it today, and I'm going to run this one anyways because, well, it's Thursday. Google Search is integrating Bitcoin price calculation right into search. All right. So I'm going to give it a go because it also works on mobile, okay? So you can type right into Google. You can say, here's an example. How many Bitcoins are in $500 US? I'm going to give it a go, okay? Are you ready? Okay, Google. How many Bitcoins are in $500 US?
500 United States dollars equals 0.81 BTC.
There you go. So you can now do Bitcoin conversion. Let's see. Okay, let's try this one. Okay, Google, what is the current Bitcoin price?
1 BTC equals 616 United States dollars and 12 cents.
How cool is that? Look at Google being all in with the Bitcoin now.
You could already do that with Bing, though. You've been able to do that for months now.
Bitcoin?
Yeah, you could type in Bitcoin to USD and it pulls up the price.
I did not. Well, I'm not exactly plugged into the Bing news.
That's
So
true,
Bing
but
does
still.
it quietly. Google says, "Hey, look what you can do."
Well, or more
Yeah.
like people write stories when Google does it, and when Bing does it, nobody notices.
That's true.
I feel bad. I didn't know Bing did that. I'm all giving Google props for like being early thinkers on that. I've got some examples in the show notes too if you guys want to see the different searches you can do to get the different Bitcoin prices. So obviously I was doing that in the mobile app. It works in mobile, works in the web search. You can type into Google 2 Bitcoin price and it'll tell you how much 2 Bitcoins put together is, and then it gives you a little graph of the overall price history right there in the search result. This is a really cool implementation. Is this similar to how Bing does it?
Yeah, I mean, you could type in 2 USD to BTC and it pulls it up.
All right. I'm going to do it right now. Bing.com, baby. All right, so I'll say, what should I say? What should I say to Bing.com?
2 USD to BTC? I don't know.
Okay, I'll do 2 USD to BTC. All right, 2 USD to BTC. Nothing.
And for me, it pulls up 2.00 US dollars equals 0.0032 Bitcoins, and they get it from an API to Coinbase.
So did you do $2, like the dollar sign, and then USD? How did you do it?
I did the actual, 3-letter currency symbol, so USD.
Yeah.
So get rid of that dollar sign.
Okay, so don't put a dollar sign in there. All right, and go. Yeah, there we go. So if you don't confuse it with a dollar sign, it works. Not as nice as Google's, though. Not the display is not as nice, but hey, look at Bing. Now, if only I used Bing ever, then I would have known that. Does DuckDuckGo do it? Because then I'd be really impressed. Now we're talking if DuckDuckGo does it.
Right, but who uses DuckDuckGo?
Hey, well, I like to pretend like I do.
Nice.
That makes me feel like I'm being a good internet citizen. Hey, let's talk really quick about Netflix because you guys know that the FCC extended their period for comment on net neutrality because of the massive response they got. So Netflix sent in a letter. How do you suppose the Netflix letter went about net neutrality? Well, I'll tell you. Here's some of the highlights that I grabbed from it. You can read the rest in the show notes.
Snarky.
Yeah. Netflix came out swinging in its submission to the FCC over their proposed fast lanes, arguing Wednesday that this would be a bad idea, that the agency should instead focus on forcing broadband providers to deliver the speeds they actually promise their customers. Oh, what an idea. In a 28-page filing, which coincides with the close of initial public commenting period, Netflix singled out Comcast and Verizon for degrading its movie streams to nearly VHS quality, direct quote, and for holding subscribers ransom in a battle over who should pay for upgrades to internet infrastructure. The company also took aim at the FCC's fast lane proposal, arguing that it creates a perverse incentive for the ISPs to create congestion so they can then turn around and demand money for traffic to pass through, arguing that no rule is better than a bad rule. Netflix fighting for the people because they want the people to watch their videos. Netflix, obviously, being good guy Netflix here, nothing to complain about them taking it to the FCC. Nothing wrong with that at all. I just want to remind you that it's really easy to slip into us versus them. Netflix is on our side. Comcast is the bad guy. I mean, that's almost universally true. But you do have to remember that Netflix has just as much at stake here as well. There is some compelling reasons to believe that perhaps Netflix could be doing more to improve some of those interconnects themselves. So I'm just trying to say not all of the onus is on Comcast and Verizon. But really, I mean, come on, let's be honest. If they had some decent competition in the U.S., Comcast and Verizon would have their butts in gear to make Netflix work better because obviously customers want it. How do we know customers want it? Because Comcast and Verizon sell their service, and the higher tiers, they specifically say, this is a great tier for Netflix because they know customers want it. And if you're going to be putting that in your marketing material, you damn well better make sure it works. You know what I'm saying, guys? So go fight the fight for us, Netflix. You're on our side this time, but we're watching you. Last story of the day, I think. Let me double check that. I might be wrong. Yeah, last story of the day is really cool. One of my favorite games of all time, Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. I don't know, for some reason, man, every now and then I just go back to it. I have a real soft spot for it. I recently went out on a search to find a replacement, something like maybe a reimagining of it. I just didn't really find anything that scratched my itch. Then I found AM2R. It's a remake of Super Metroid. It's called Another Metroid 2 Remake. That's what AM2R stands for. And they've just announced support for Linux, which is excellent. The developer recently transitioned to GameMaker Studio. In the process, many features had to be redone from scratch, so Linux support was just written in too. The demo, early builds of the demo show very good promise with 60 frames per second level performance. And I got a video clip of it right here. So it looks a lot like Metroid. Sounds a lot like Metroid. And here, I'll play a little bit of it for you. Actually looks a little better than old Metroid, I gotta tell you. I cannot wait to play this. Anybody played Metroid in the Mumble Room?
Oh yeah, back in the day.
Oh yeah, I played all of them. I mean, except for when it got to the GameCube, I kind of started to fall out of it because I preferred this platformer style. What's interesting about Metroid, when Nintendo launched it, in their ads to children, they actually promoted the fact that they had 32 megabytes worth of guns and ammo and weaponry in the cartridge. That was the promotion to children. And they said, this is Nintendo's biggest game ever. And it really was. And it really struck a chord with an entire generation of people. And so it's so awesome to see a remake that looks this good coming, and now with support for Linux. I cannot wait to get my hands on it. When I do, I'll give you guys an update. So that's AMR2, and there's demos out right now you can find. Although I think the builds are in kind of a bad state because of the recent rebuild. So you might watch out for that. Hey, before we run, I want to just mention the Patreon, patreon.com/today. We hit our next milestone, the barbecue challenge, so the planning has begun. I think we'll jump into that when I return from OSCON. I think that'll be one of the things we get into. So we're now at 265 patrons. Thank you. This is an investment in the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. There is an amount of stability and flexibility that this crowdfunding platform gives us that I just really cannot state in about a 1 to 30 second spot in a show. It is fundamentally critical to the future of the Jupiter Broadcasting Network. It allows us to have leverage in negotiation with sponsor contracts. It allows us to keep a good balance between sponsors and community funding. It enables us to make investments, to repair things, to go on trips, to play events like OSCON, all of it. Like, we just recently dropped about $600 on the trip to OSCON. It's on credit card. But, you know, when this Patreon payment goes through for the next month, we'll be able to pay that stuff off. We would have, in the past, it sounds ridiculous, but we would have had to make payments on that for like 3 months because we run a very lean shop here. But now we're gonna be able to address these things and do tactical strikes. We're not flush with money yet. We're still very hard up, but we're able now to make important tactical strikes. That's what that milestone did for us. That is so huge. As a business owner and as a father, I thank you guys for doing that. Patreon.com/today. Let's keep it going. I'm not ready to talk about it just yet because I really want to, when I do begin to communicate what some of my longer-term plans are, I want to make sure I'm very cognizant about how I communicate them to you guys so that way you get as excited about them as I am. But soon I'm going to outlay some of the future things we're going to do as that funding level increases, and it's going to be things that directly benefit the Jupiter Broadcasting Network and make all of the shows better. All of the shows better. You can do that by going to patreon.com/today. Get in there, and we celebrate it right here in the Tech Talk Today show. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much to our 265 patrons over at patreon.com. That barbecue challenge is coming soon, so stay tuned for that once we get OSCON in the bag. All right. So normally this would be our last episode of the week, but we'll be back tomorrow to record some stuff for next week because, like I mentioned, going to be at OSCON. I want to get some stuff in the bag for you guys. So please join us Friday, 9 a.m., noon Eastern, jblive.tv. for the video, jblive.info for the audio, techtalktoday.reddit.com. That's where you submit to get any kind of push us in a certain direction, I guess is the way to put it. If you want to give us an idea of the kind of stories you want to see on the show, submit them there, vote on them there, comment on them there. I go there, I take the temperature of the topics you guys are talking about, and I start integrating those types of stories. Sometimes I take a story directly, and sometimes the topic is what matters, and I go, they're particularly interested in X. Maybe it's Bitcoin, or maybe it's not Bitcoin. Those kinds of things I can gauge by your involvement over at techtalktoday.reddit.com. Last but not least, I'm only going to mention this from time to time, but if you have a few minutes, we could really use your help in iTunes. Not a lot of you use iTunes, so if you're one of our iTunes user or an iPhone user, we could really use your help on the ratings and comments. I made this call a couple of weeks ago, and you guys crushed it. When's the last time I used that word? I mean, I was blown away. We rocked the technology section in iTunes for like a solid week and a half. Right there on the front page, because you guys went in there and commented and rated, and we picked up thousands of more listeners because of you. So thank you. Thank you for doing that. And if you haven't had a chance yet, please go into iTunes, find Tech Talk Today's MP3 feed, We're putting it all in the MP3 feed right now. And leave a comment and a rating. I know I hate to ask you to do it, but if you don't mind, it really does help the show quite a bit, and I appreciate it. Okay, so we started today's show with a look at Microsoft. I mean, I think it's pretty clear this is a new era of Microsoft. The Satya Nadella era begins today. This is truly the beginning, the first concrete, visible action that's going to have long, deep ramifications at Microsoft. It is the beginning of a new era. I think today we can officially say the old era, the previous era that was ignited with Windows 95. Microsoft has gone through several different huge transformations, and their last really big one was with Windows 95. So let's look back with a classic Windows 95 commercial.
No, it's not The Tonight Show.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is not a classic commercial. This is actually way better. I was going to go the classic commercial. This is brilliant because I experienced this when it happened. In fact, I got a little emotional when I saw this because this happened in my hometown. This was a huge event. I had very close family members that were intimately involved with this launch, and the Computer Chronicles was on the air at the time. And this was their recap of the big Windows 95 launch. And watch this and look at this. Microsoft doesn't do anything like this anymore. This was truly a unique period in that company's history.
Gentlemen, Jay Leno.
No, it's not The Tonight Show. Bill Gates invited Jay Leno to launch Windows 95 at this Hollywood-style event at Microsoft headquarters.
Well, Windows 95 is so easy, even a talk show host can figure it out.
You got your taskbar. Let's go right down there. Little taskbar there. You can click on there. You see? And I can change my mind. Do I go over here? This one too. I can change my mind faster than Bill Clinton. Look at that, huh? Healthcare, no healthcare. Republican today, Democrat tomorrow. Sure, there you go. Just flip it back and forward. Back and forward. Easy as pie-ola. That's a technical term.
There were video testimonials by corporate users as well as home users.
I tape the CD, put it in, click it on the computer, and the big circle comes, and then the bird comes.
Members of the audience were pulled backstage to upgrade from Windows 3.1 to Windows 95 during the gala. The site was connected via satellite to an audience in an amusement park in the Silicon Valley, and the now widely recognized Start Me Up commercial previewed here. The big screen came down to reveal the development team. The audience made its way past them to the circus tents filled with more than 300 applications developed for Windows 95. For the Computer Chronicles, I'm Giles Bateman.